Okay, so we're going to be making granola today, and I'm shooting a pretty limited camera angle, so I'm going to say a quick hello, but I'm just going to be focused on what I'm doing down here. Now, super easy. I've got an oven down here that's on about 140, 150 degrees Celsius, centigrade, whatever, fan forced. This is going to go into that oven. It's just a baking tray with a bit of wax paper. I've got 3 different seeds, almonds and sunflower pepitas, but realistically, you can use whatever combination of nuts and seeds you want. That keeps it interesting. I've got some goji berries. These come in a bit later, and I've got some plain rolled oat, bits you can get, and then a few other things here that I'll talk about in a step. So just to get started, all we need here firstly was to mix your dry ingredients together. What we're going to be doing is 3 cups of oats. So 1, 2, 3, just like that. And then a quarter of a cup or thereabouts of our other 3 seed or nut based ingredients. We're going to keep the goji berries for a bit later. So in my case, I'm going to do a quarter of a cup of sunflower seeds, with a quarter of a cup, even a third of a cup of almonds. Oh, God, that's noisy. Okay, third of a cup of almonds, a few of those, press on the almonds, and then about a quarter of a cup, in my case, of pepitas. And yeah, you can go over those if you want. We can get them out. Yeah, like that. Cool. All right, that's good. And we'll get a fork out just for good measure, just to mix these up a bit. And the other thing we're going to do is just get a bit of cinnamon. So yeah, grab that from the. So we've got some ground cinnamon here. Just a generous sort of dusting of that in there. Maybe it's about a teaspoon, probably around a teaspoon, I'd say, if you're keen to measure it. You just want to make sure that this gets all nice and mixed up. And this is our dry ingredients. You'll notice that there's no sugar added. This granola, whatever you want to call it, recipe has 0 added sugar, although it does have some things in it to make it sweeter, and you can dial that up for as much as little as you want. So now that we've got our dry ingredient, we grab something that you've blended. If you've got some really ripe fruit, it could be pears, it could be bananas. It just wants to be of a pretty liquid consistency, like not super runny, but somewhat thick. So I don't know if you can see this in here, but I'll pour it in just so you can see it. So it's got a reasonable amount of liquid, and you want to throw some olive oil into that as well. I'd say it's probably a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And then what's this going to do is it's going to coat everything in here. So what we're going to do now is mix this up, and you can basically use any fruit that you've got. You've got to throw in a little bit of oil in there. I would suggest olive oil, but probably use other oils as well, maybe an avocado oil or something like that. Just be mindful of the fat content of what you're doing, and it doesn't matter if you get this thing a little bit too wet, because we're going to be putting it in the oven to dry out anyway. But that's usually about enough. So you can see here, I've just mixed that through. Everything's coated nicely. And then all we do from here, we'll get this onto our tray. So just throw that out there. I'll get a little thing to pull it all out. Okay, so hopefully you can see this here. And so we just put this out on the tray. And there's a few schools of thought here. I'm of the school of thought in terms of how you lay this out, that you want to have the maximum amount of surface area. And that means not flattening it, but actually keeping all the peaks and troughs, but then spreading it all the way out as far as it can go, so that you can maximize the amount of surface area so everything can get lost. Now, you can see here I'm doing it a little bit with my fingers, and I haven't yet put the goji berries on, and I'll explain why that happens a little bit later on. So everything's pretty stretched out there. I think we've spent a total of maybe 2 minutes so far. Cool, that's good. And we'll pop that in the oven. Just a reminder, on about 150 degree fan forced oven. And we're going to put that in and set the clock for somewhere between 10 and 12 minutes. We're basically going to do 4 10 to 12 minute intervals, and we're going to do some turning. So I'm going to pause the video and come back 12 minutes from now and show you what happens next. Okay, so it's been roughly 10 minutes. All we need to do at this stage, when you first open that oven the first time, it's going to be a bunch of steam, so just be careful of that because most of the liquid's come out. Just turn it around and then just stick it back in. That's all we have to do at this stage. You'll notice the whole piece is clean. That's a great thing about making this, it's super clean. See you again in about 10 to 12 minutes, depending on your oven and whatever. But remember, roughly 140, 150. Don't make it too hot. You want to dry this stuff out, not toast it too much to begin with. Okay, so it's been another 10 minutes, so we're back. And it's probably starting to smell this now. So this still won't be dry, but what we're going to do is make sure that everything's getting dealt with. So I'm going to flip it on itself in here, just like that, and then just spread it back out again. Some might come off to the sides, that doesn't matter. But just makes it easier to get it on and off. But you do want to make sure this is all still spread out. It's still going to feel a little bit moist, that's okay. It's drying out, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So just get it nice to the edges, and then we're just going to bung that back in. Haven't forgot about these guys. These guys come in the next step. We'll put that in for about another, call it 12 minutes, and then we'll come back again. Right, so we're up to the final 10 minutes or so that needs to go in. We're just going to pull it out one last time and turn it around again. You can just spread it back out to the edges. If you're going to add like a goji berry or something that's maybe kind of dried fruit, sweet, it could be cut up dates, anything that kind of is going to add some sweetness, this would be the time to put it in. You don't actually want to put it in earlier than this. You can actually put it in right at the end as well. You don't have to put it in the oven. But if you put it in too early, it just turns into like a really hard blob, and I don't know, it's not terrible, but I just think it's nice if these things have a bit more. So we're going to put that back in. Now this last turn might be 10 minutes, might be 12 minutes. Basically, this is now until it's toasted, and we'll talk more about that when I pull it out after this turn. Okay, so it's been another 12 minutes, and I'm pretty sure we're done here. So if you pull this out, you can see what's happened to the goji berries. They've swirled up a bit and they've toasted a bit. So if you did that for a lot longer, they're not going to be great. The other thing to consider here is how to know if this is done properly, because when it's hot, it's actually hard to tell if it's going to be crispy later. And I find the way to do that is with an almond. Because an almond has such a distinct different taste once it's actually been toasted, and so it shouldn't be too hot to do it straight out of the oven, but you can definitely taste that that's now a toasted almond, not just a cooked almond or something that's been slightly cooked. You're going to leave that there until it's cold, and like proper cold, like maybe 10, 20 minutes probably. I mean, it doesn't matter if you leave it for a bit longer, and then we'll come back and we'll put it in a container, and then we're done. Okay, so we're done now, and I was just saying with the goji berries, even that 10 minutes was probably a tad too long. I mean, it's obviously comes down to your taste, but throwing them in right at the end, they're not going to have anything at all, but if they're in there too long, they're going to have this kind of burnty flavour rather than sweet kind of caramelised flavour, so just be mindful of that. At this point, the best way to get this stuff in, I found, is just to grab this. Be super careful, and then just put that all into there, and then with the bits that come off the side, you should be able to just put all that onto there, and then repeat the process. And there you have it. 5 minutes of effort, takes about an hour in the oven, and you have sugar-free muesli for a week. Costs about a third of what it costs to buy it at the shops. You can mix it up with any type of fruit, yogurt of choice, maybe a non-dairy based yogurt. Don't even use milk. I actually just use blended berries or some form of blended smoothie. Perfect every time. Enjoy.